it before. And let's see, do we need permission to share, Angela, or is it working?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so is that working?
I don't see it yet.
Is there something we need to do on this end, Jim?
Okay, it says host disable participant.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So Alan, you need to go down to share screen. There's a drop down bottom center where it says share screen. There's a drop down that says allow screen sharing.
We probably need to get some teenagers in here because all of us older folks are not terribly computer literate. Or we could get Reed Larson. He'd be good too.
Reed's on with us, it looks like, so we may need to be rescued, Reed.
Well, the instructions that you just got are good. Just go down to the share screen and little green button underneath.
It's like I think there's like a pull down menu to the right of share screen. And then when you set these up, Steve, you can set all these before you schedule the meeting. You can put all these preconditions in there. Like when they start a meeting, it will automatically mute people as they enter the room. You can automatically allow them in. Just kind of scroll down through the options and then it will allow you to do that. Okay, that looks like it, right?
So, hey, Steve, one question for you. We're not on a 40-minute limit, are we?
I hope not. We shouldn't be.
Okay, if you have a paid account, then we're not. But if you have a free account, then we are.
No, we have a paid account.
All right, very good.
Good. Who's shared this screen? That must be Alan.
Alan, unmute yourself, would you? Is that you that's?
Yeah, and I am not seeing anywhere where I can allow participants to share screens, actually, so.
And he has been appointed as the host, Reed, so.
Maybe appoint Reed as the host and Reed can maybe do it.
Okay, we'll do that.
I don't know who's
Okey-dokey.
sharing screen right now.
Somebody's sharing screen. I would guess that's Alan because it
That's what I think.
says that he is. Oh, I guess I'm a host.
Hey,
now.
Reed, you're the
Okay.
host.
So I just admitted a bunch more people who were waiting, and
Perfect.
I will go enable screen sharing in one moment. All right, that should be good to go now.
Okay, try it, Angela.
Okay,
Nice. Nice.
see
All right, that's
that?
good.
and
That's good.
I'm just gonna keep it in this mode. I'm not gonna go full mode because the pictures that I took, we might jump around a little bit and I don't have them memorized in the order. So, so you'll have to bear with us on that.
Okay, that's cool. So this is just from Denver's blog, I guess was about a week ago. It just caught my attention, so I wanted to put it up here just to introduce the topic. All wholesome herbs God has ordained for constitution, for nature, and the use of man. Every herb in the season thereof, and every fruit in the season thereof, all these to be used with prudence and thanksgiving. Fresh food that has not been processed, particularly if you grow it in your own garden, might be a far better plan for life than relying on increasingly authoritarian suppliers. I just made me think about this whole topic and the need to put up nutritious food against the season. So again, we're not experts in any of this. The direction we felt to go as a family with regards to food prep was to put up enough food storage that would supply a family of 4 for 2 to 3 years. And we figured that by the end of 2 or 3 years, if we hadn't learned to grow our own food, we're going to starve or die. So or both. And so we decided that would be the direction that we'd do it. And we felt that basically the overall weight of that much food would be a huge burden. And we liked the idea of removing the water content from our food to preserve it for as long as we could. So that next slide, Ange, about you've all seen these probably now, the Harvest Strike freeze dryer. There really is only one kind of reasonable alternative, I think, to freeze drying. It's kind of our setup right here. They're really good people there. I think, the Van Leers had them over for dinner, and many of you went to. It's really good, and nice people, easy to work with. And there's a lot of demand on them right now, because these were hard to come by for a while, and they're catching back up again. But freeze drying is all the rage right now. And the supplies or the peripherals that they sell alongside of them aren't the cheapest. You can find them a little cheaper online, but they're not that much cheaper. So I think they do a reasonable job. I've bought probably half of our stuff from them and another half through some online sources that I found. There's basically 3 sizes of freeze dryer. There's like a large one, a medium one, and a small one. We decided to buy the largest freeze dryer we could find and kind of use it alongside the way that we already cook. And so if we were going to cook for 2, we decided to cook for like 10 or something. And so we would then put up the excess and just kind of do it as it was natural. But then we found ways of finding sales on things. At the grocery store, when they were having a sale on cheese or something, Angela would go and buy a bunch of it and pre-freeze it. And it's one of those things super easy to pre-freeze and get it ready on the trays. And she's going to talk a lot more about that than me. I'm just going to talk about the setup a little bit. So the smallest and the medium size are your standard 110 volt. So they'll just plug into a wall, but the larger one requires, show that next slide, Ange. Yeah, it requires this dedicated 100 or 220 volt circuit. And it needs to have a home run, is what they call it in the electrical world, and that it can't have anything else on that same circuit. So you'll need to run that all the way back to the electrical panel. And if you don't have something like that, or you know a circuit that is not being used likewise, then you should be able to just use it without having to do much different other than change that outlet. You see how it has that different outlet size? So I had to do a little bit of rewiring just to get that outlet changed. It's not a huge deal, but does need to be a dedicated circuit. So along with it, go the slide back, Ange. There's 3 sizes of pumps that you can use with that green thing on the side. It's a separate unit, sits on the ground. And there's 3 different levels of those as well. There's kind of like the cheaper, which is, I think it's like $500. The medium-sized one is this premium oil pump. So the cheapest version is $500. It requires oil. This is the medium-sized pump. It also requires oil, but it's a little better built, and you can use the oil longer. And then there's an oilless pump. It's kind of expensive though. I think it's like $1,000 or something. So we went with this one. I think they say from the factory that you'd have to change the oil on the lowest quality pump like every 5 to 10 batches, and that this one would be about 20 batches. We haven't found that really to be the case. The oil's getting bad if it gets kind of cloudy, and ours is still pretty clear. We've had like 30 batches at a time, and I just changed it once because I felt like I had to, but I look at it and it looks crystal clear. So I think they go a lot longer than they show. We bought 2 sets of trays. It comes with 5. And we bought 2 sets because we wanted to prep some food and put it in the freezer while another batch was running, just to increase our efficiency. You see that little screen at the top right of the unit? It kind of tells you the progress of the process. They roughly run for a 24-hour cycle. Costs about $3.50 to $4 on average per cycle in electricity use, is I guess what the average is. And so we have like a little Wi-Fi camera that we point, because you kind of need to monitor it and to see when it's finished. And because what happens is after it's finished a cycle, it waits for you to take the food out, and it's kind of nice and warm at that point because it's warming up the chamber. And if you're not ready to take the food out, it kind of refreezes and just kind of keeps it cold till you're ready to bring it out, and it's just less efficient. So you kind of want to know when the cycles are done. And instead of running downstairs all the time, we just set up a little Wi-Fi camera so we could monitor it. We just put it on our phone, just a little trick that we came up with. And then in terms of how you store the food, and Angela will show you this, but there's a lot of people on the internet that have provided a ton of content. Probably the best one that you probably all heard, if you've looked into this a little bit, is Retired at 40. And this guy has done so much, and it's his business. We've ordered a few things from him, but you want a bag that's at least 5 millimeters thick. And to go less than that, it doesn't store real well. So just look for a thicker bag. I believe the ones you get from Harvest Right are 7 mil. So that's kind of it. I just wanted to introduce you to that. Angela's going to kind of show you what we have done to do it. I think it's important we store it right. You can get large containers like those big Costco yellow and black. That's what we did. You can do large containers because it's not that heavy, and you can tote them around a lot. Whereas if it was full of flour, you'd never be able to do that. So we've been using that, and Angela's going to kind of tell you our setup. That's a picture of what we have at our setup at our house, and it's good to put the unit up a little higher so that you don't have to bend over, and it drains when it defrosts, it drains the ice out of it to a bucket down below. So it just helps you not have to bend over as much. And then it's always nice to have a freezer right by as prep. So take it away, Ange. You can kind of show them what we've been up to.
Okay, so I might jump around a little bit, kind of here and there, but with the pictures. So I want to go first to let's see. Okay. To this. So Jim talked about the packaging, and that's what we have. Can you see my little mouse when I move it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So we the freeze dryer comes with this sealer, and that's what the foil bags are for. We also bought from Cabela's just a oh gosh, no, I can't.
Vacuum sealer.
Yeah, vacuum sealer. And that's what I've done. I just showed a picture of flour here. I'll buy big, huge bags of flour, and then I'll put them in smaller bags so that I can quickly access them. Jim talked about I call them the bumblebee carriers, and those are from Costco. We have found that these at Costco are the best. They also have some at Home Depot and Lowe's, but the quality is just not the same. We've also, with our freeze-dried meals, bought these emergency meals and have stored them in there. We were just storing them on the shelf in the boxes, and we found that little critters can actually go through not only the boxes, but also the Mylar bags. So make sure that you don't just store your Mylar bags. Make sure you put them in some type of container. And like I said, we have looked around and have found these little bumblebee containers to be the best. Okay. Jim talked about cheese. We've done just a couple of different cheeses. The Costco cheese, we love Costco. I mean, buying bulk is the best, it's cheapest, but you can also get your one-off sales at grocery stores where you can just go and buy a whole bunch when they go on sale. But we have here the cheddar cheese, and then we also did some mozzarella. Mozzarella has a lot more moisture in it, more water content. So when we froze, like we would just go and buy them and just throw them in the freezer. And we found this to be really helpful so that, in between batches, sometimes you have to cook all of this stuff before you put it in. And it's not feasible to do that constantly. So we just love having cheese on hand, and we can just get it right from the freezer, just break it up and stick it in the freezer. But with a mozzarella, we found that it's better to put that in and on the trays first before freezing it, because when you put it in the bags, breaking it up is just really hard to do. This little gadget right here, Jim found, I'm not sure exactly where. Jim, did you get
Is it
on?
that retired at 40 website?
Okay. And you can see the bottom of it here folds your bag, and then it's really easy to just pour your content in, because otherwise from the trays, just trying to kind of guide it in is a little bit harder if you don't have something else. And you can see my little impromptu little thing that I put tape on the edges here because it kept falling through, and but you want to be able to pull it out also. So I just put a little bit of tape on it so that it doesn't fall through as easily. We did some salsa here. This just kind of gives you an idea. Now what's interesting is I tried different liners. So I did saran wrap on one, I did one just plain, and then this middle one, we used the parchment paper. Love the parchment paper. Today I did some that I will show you also, some Alfredo, and I didn't use parchment paper, and I should have, because it's just a lot easier to clean up when you have that parchment paper. I also like the dividers here, because I feel like it just makes it go a lot faster as far as freeze drying. And I did one that didn't have the dividers, and you could actually see the middle just didn't dry out that as fast, and so there were little spots in it that I had to re-dry. So I do like using the dividers. Here's some pickles I tried. Here's a fail, just so you know, if you do decide to do some pickles, I think you need to rinse them off and actually soak them in water overnight and then put them on, because the salt content is absolutely crazy. I love salt, and it was just like way too salty for me. So so that's just a FYI. Here is the Alfredo that I did today. Here's the little, not the
Those
dividers,
stackers,
but-
the
well,
stackers and the dividers were all retired at 40. You don't have to do that, but they were just there. They're pretty cheap.
Yeah, it makes it pretty easy. Jim absolutely loved those. I figured out over here. You guys all know, I don't know if you can see, I know we're sharing the screen. Can you also see, can you see me at all in the little boxes?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. So these little, these are just like little pizza, that hold the box so that the pizza doesn't touch the box. For a while we were just using these, and these work really good. I almost like them a little bit better than the stackers. Jim loves the stackers, but it's just easy. It's just so easy where you can just put these on each side and then stack them in the freezer. And that's another thing, is having a freezer right by your machine is key, because you want to freeze it first and then stick it in your dryer. And then last of all, I have, what I like to do is the fun candies and stuff. I just want to show you a picture of some bears that I did, just gummy bears, and how they blow up, and it's always fun. The Skittles are awesome, and I think there's room for a little candy too to have in our freeze dryer, so that we can pull out some fun things maybe down the road when
What does
we can't just
freeze dried
candy.
gummy bear taste like? Like what's the texture of?
So okay, so I just did some. Hold on just a second.
Jolly Ranchers.
Jolly
Okay.
Ranchers.
I think they taste like Jolly Ranchers.
Let me pull out a couple of things that I did. I guess I can stop sharing the screen now. So hold on here, stop share. There we go. Okay. Okay, so Skittles. Here's some Skittles that I just did. I just did these little cute little Valentine bags, but they pop. Get one out here. And I don't know if you can see this very well. Can you see that? It's kind of
Yeah.
yellow, but you can see how they pop and they crunch. So I'll just eat one real quick in front of you here.
Oh my gosh, did you really just eat a Skittle in front of everybody?
Yeah. Okay, because you and that you think that they're going to be chewy, but they're like. So you can store a whole bunch of these and pull them out for a quick treat. You know, just you got to have some fun in life, right? Okay, so here's another one that I did. These were just like dollar store little marshmallows. And so again, it was a marshmallow. So you can hear that's the texture.
And yeah, not the most nutritious, just something for fun.
No, but you know, hot chocolate. I mean, come on. You got to have something in your hot chocolate. So why not pull out one of those and pop it in? You know, fun. Okay, so here, this you can see this. This is the gummy bear. Okay, so
Somebody's enjoying themselves.
anyways,
Oh,
there's a lot of fun things you can do. My favorite is milk duds. If you like milk duds, they blow up and it's just airy and crisp and
it's like eating a
Fun.
Cheeto. It's like they kind of make Cheetos out of it, but
yeah. But I mean, you can just experiment and just do some fun things. I don't think. Oh, one thing that we didn't cover is the meats. So meats, we have found that you don't want to do greasy stuff like sausage. So anything with a high fat content isn't going to store a long time. I mean, if you're going to store it for just like a year, you know, and you want it a year down the road, then that's absolutely perfect to use. But if it's going to be long term and you're looking 20 years down the road, you don't want to do that. We've done chicken, beef, turkey. What else have we done, Jim? Beef.
yeah, like pulled pork. So all these things, like it's awesome. You can put them in your freezer, and if you've got a like one of those pot Instapots or
Yes, a
Ninja
pressure
cookers or
cooker.
whatever.
Okay, I have to
If
just
you-
put a little plug in here for a pressure cooker. They're amazing, and your meats just like fall apart. I mean, literally fall apart. There's no shredding that you have to do. I mean, it's just like you get a fork and it just comes apart. Makes stuff really easy, and they're very, very fast. So I do a lot of that for preparation. Veggies, we've done all sorts of vegetables, potatoes. We've done the shredded potatoes. Another fast thing that you could do is Costco has the shredded potatoes that you can buy that's already pre-frozen. I mean, just things, I mean, it's easy. It's really easy to just pop stuff in really fast. So I think it's key to have a few things on hand when you're doing your freeze dryer, so that, you know, because you kind of get burnt out after cooking and cooking and cooking and then putting it in. It's a process. I mean, it's not just easy and fast. It takes a lot of work.
But if you're going to go to Costco and get a hot chicken, you may as well get like 5 of them and put it in there, bring it home and let it cool off. And you can put that right in the freezer. If it's Thanksgiving and you're going to go get get a free turkey, if you spend $120 or something, you may as well get a couple more turkeys and spend the money, because they freeze dry super well.
Yeah. Also, like seasoning your stuff. I can make this wonderful Mexican mix. And so I made like a huge bowl full, and then we freeze dried it. And I'm like, it's going to be really nice to just pull that out and have it pre-made, all done. Rice is another thing. It makes kind of like a minute rice. I mean, you think, oh, I don't need to store, or I don't need to cook rice, but actually if you when you reconstitute it, you just have to use a little bit of water. You don't have to, use a big pot and boil it and take the time. So, I mean, as far as preparation, you do a lot of preparation now, but in the end, it's going to be totally worth it. And taking the water content out, I mean, everything is just so lightweight. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Okay, amen. It's all yours, Alan.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Jim and Angela. Appreciate it. I think at this point, we're now going to turn some time over to Steve and Linda to talk a little bit about their experience with freeze drying. So Steve and Linda.
Yeah.
You go first.
Okay, well, that was an awesome demonstration. And if you're not familiar with freeze drying, I think that Jim and Angela made it very understandable, and hopefully it sparked some inspiration and some interest in some of those of you who haven't started freeze drying yet. Linda and I actually started thinking about a freeze dryer after almost a year ago, just about a year ago. And we had purchased for our family a bunch of freeze-dried stuff that we keep in a storage unit up in Eden, Utah, where we used to live. And we realized at one point that all of that freeze-dried food that we have up there is great, but that we could and should probably be freeze-drying food for against a day of need and want. We're told in the covenant that there is a troubling season, which the Lord says is soon upon you. And we began to realize that probably, there's going to come a time when we will need to be self-sufficient. I don't know if all of you have been paying close attention. We try to pay close attention to every word that comes from the Lord. And I appreciate our brother McKay Platt. He sent something over to me in the middle of the week, this last week, that we have looked at over and over again. I want to share it with you guys. And as I do, I want you to be thinking to yourself, because there's going to be a quiz. I want you to be thinking to yourself when this statement was made by Denver. Okay? So listen to this. If you are one of those who believe in him and who will not dwindle in unbelief, will not accept the commandments of men as doctrine, but will take the Spirit for your guide, then Jacob promises that Christ will not destroy you. The rest he will destroy. Fire will upset the order of things and make societal collapse inevitable. Men's self-inflicted woes will not be the only sign of divine disapproval. The earth will quake to signal God's disapproval. Interruptions of social order and control will be followed by self-inflicted violence. Bloodshed will be widespread among the survivors. Disease and pestilence will be one of the results of the lack of social order. Air and water will be contaminated. Neglected hygiene will lead to the promised pestilence. As the downward spiral continues, food production and distribution will be inadequate to prevent widespread global famine. It is as if Jacob could see the sequence of events and gave us a list of how it would unfold step by step. As the unbelieving are wiped from the earth, survival during this bleak time depends on the qualification of believing in him. Okay, any volunteers to tell us when that statement was made by Denver? Not you, Reed. You don't have.
2017. 2017.
Okay, any other guesses?
Closer to 2011, it was the second Nephi 6 blog post, but it was between 2010 and 2012.
10 years ago. Yeah, it was 10 years ago. Now, I don't know if you've been paying close attention, but just recently, in the last recent weeks, I have counted 3 separate times that Denver has mentioned food, and specifically that food would be used as a tool to control people. Have you noticed that? Did you guys pick up on those words from Denver? When he says it once, it's one thing. When it's repeated, well, 4 times that I'm aware of for sure, probably ought to pay extra close attention.
Just real quick, in the 1930s, Stalin used starvation to murder approximately 30 million people, and Mao in the 1960s Cultural Revolution used starvation to murder about 40 million people. So this is not something that there are people alive today that remember those things.
Yes. So this quote that McKay sent over to bless all of us, did you notice that, and we need to pay close attention, survival during this bleak time depends on the qualification of putting up food, having plenty of food storage? No. Believing in him. Believing in him. And so Linda and I began this effort by going to our fellowship, and I'll let Linda take it from there.
So we approached our fellowship and told them what we were feeling and asked if they would want to participate in this and gather money as a fellowship and buy a machine. It was a unanimous vote to do so. So when we had enough money, we purchased the machine. Steve and I have the machine here in our home, and we keep that machine going. We, as a fellowship, decided that it was a good idea to not have all the food stored in one central spot, but that each family we would distribute what we had dried to all the families in our fellowship. So we've done this now today. We did it for the 3rd time, and all the families in our fellowship have those black and yellow totes, 2 or 3 of those completely filled and in their individual homes. That's how we have decided to do it in our fellowship. There may come a time when we decide as a fellowship that we need, in addition, to have some stored away in a central area, and all in the fellowship would have a key to a storage unit. That is something that may come as of right now. Everyone has all equal in their own individual homes.
We have counseled together and talked together a lot as a fellowship about what is the wisest and the best way to store what it is we're putting up. And we recognize that when people get hungry, they do things that people will not normally do. Our family, my brother Alan and I, our father's family was in World War II in Holland, and they knew hunger. They literally looked for food in garbage cans. My own father, who was 13 years old at that time in Rotterdam, Holland. And so when food becomes scarce, people do things that wouldn't normally happen. And one thing that you ought to consider as you counsel with your fellowships and families is the security of what it is you're putting up. Denver suggested that we ought to be somewhat discreet, somewhat quiet about, not that we're, need to go sneaking around in a secretive way or anything like that, but that we just be discreet. And because when it becomes known, my father never could get over an incident when he was a young boy in Holland where he sneaked in to the back of a cabinet that my grandma kept locked, and they had a little morsel of cheese. And my dad never could resolve in his own heart and mind the fact that he broke into that when he was starving and ate that morsel of cheese and took it from his family. People, if they know that there's a food supply and people are starving, people will do what they need to do to get that food. So you ought to consider in your fellowships, how do we best do this? How do we thought that distributing among the families in the fellowship would be the best way, because if a patrol comes and takes all the food out of a house, then you have in our fellowship 8 other houses that have food supply still. So just some things to think about and consider. This is, I believe, an inspired thing. The Lord is preparing his people because we will need to be prepared. And now is the day, now is the time. I went into Walmart, and I have a couple of pictures on my phone. If I was really smart like Angela and Jim, I would put it up on the screen for you to see. But I went to Walmart, and there were row after row of empty shelves. I've never seen that at Walmart before. And with 250,000 trucks in line up in Canada and not making deliveries across the border, I predict that you will also start to see some empty shelves. How long will that last? Who knows? But we also know that what we bought last week is a lot cheaper than what we're going to buy in a couple of weeks. And now is the time. I want to say one last thing, and then we'll turn it over and we'll have some discussion. Freeze drying and all that Angela and Jim talked about is the cream of the crop, so to speak, of what we will be able to eat in a time of need. You ought to also, in your fellowships and families, think about rice, beans, potatoes, pastas, things that can be used as a base. Some of that really good stuff that Angela was talking about can be put on a bowl of rice and used to fill a stomach and satisfy an appetite in a stomach, but also be delicious. And that's where the freeze drying comes in. If you have some oatmeal, all of the families in our fellowship have big buckets of oatmeal that we've picked up. And if you can make a bowl of oatmeal and put some berries on it, or some peaches or bananas, it makes it not only just drudgery, but actually enticing and good to eat. Good to eat. So if you haven't begun to freeze dry, consider it, because moving freeze dried food is going to be much easier, simpler, nicer than trying to move. I think Alan Pulsefree, you were telling us about the old elders quorum days when we would move someone's food supply and it was just a day of hell. Everything's so heavy and difficult to move and so forth. So consider it. Consider approaching the families in your fellowship, and consider getting a freeze dryer or two and going to work with those. That is all we had.
Can I add one thing, Steve, to that? The freeze dryer is certainly not the only way to get dehydrated food. And the question often comes, is it cheaper just to buy what's been made before versus what you can freeze dry on your own? And I just wanted to lend some legitimacy to that argument there. We're always on the lookout, I think, for food from different sources that is already freeze dried. It doesn't have perhaps the most nutritional content that you could get if you did your own, but it'll fill your belly. And I think another way to move fast is to not only do your own, but look for those opportunities to pick up, maybe they have 3 or 4 cases or whatever. And Angela was able to locate that where they were just having closeout sales or whatever. And it was cheaper that we figured than doing on your own through a freeze dryer, but you have to kind of watch those carefully. And I think if you do that and your own, and you also, vacuum seal your rice in Mylar bags and really preserve it longer, I think you can use the thing as a whole. And we may be doing, I think we estimate about 70% will be freeze dried, and still another 30% will need to have things like beans and rice. So always to add to that and look for those sales.
The bulk stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the freeze dried stuff will end up being the cream of the crop. We'll all go over to the O'Rulean camp and we will get a gummy bear to crunch on.
And you'll thank Angela for that, because I tell her she's stupid every time she puts some in there. But
well, we've done Skittles, we've done Big Hunt candy bars that are just delicious. We've got taffy, saltwater taffy, and some different things that we're going to do. Something came to mind when Jim was talking. I just want to point out why freeze dry. Freeze drying retains north of 95% of the nutritional value of the food that you freeze dry. Typical canned, bottled stuff may retain around 70 at the best. So becomes very light, water's removed, high nutritional value, and it's very, very flavorful. We took a ham, macaroni, tomato casserole that Linda's mom used to make in our family for decades. And it just is delicious to just sit and munch on the crunchy casserole, let alone reconstituting it. And you're all invited over to the Van Leer camp at some point, and we will serve you a delicious meal.
I have a couple of questions for Angela and Jim. What's the first question? What's the longest amount of time you've had beef that you've gone back and seen how healthy it is, how edible it is? And secondly, have you ever tried rinsing cooked beef in hot water before freeze drying it?
I'll answer that. So as far as reconstituting it, we're just in the process of actually doing it. So we haven't used any of it really. I mean, we'll have something that's like left over. And so we'll try it, you know, because not enough to fit in one of those big Mylar bags. But as far as the beef rinsing it, I don't know. When you're looking at putting that down drains, that's the question is, do you want to get rid of your grease that way? As far as pipes, clogging them. Jim and I are on a, what's the waste, honey? What's it called?
Septic.
Septic, yeah. And so, you know, if you were to clog something like that, you're looking at thousands of dollars. You got to fix that. So, I mean, I've read different ways that people have done it where they've rinsed it in buckets and then threw the water outside. You know, I guess if you want to do it that way. Jim and I, what we have done is just used paper towels, and it's probably not the most effective way, kind of, but we'll just pour it on paper towels and then just press out as much of the grease that we can. So, but I've read that people really
Ground
like
hamburger. Ground hamburger is where you see a lot of that, but it's tough because ground hamburger, it's really, when it freeze dries, it crumbles so much, even when you put it up. And by the time you go to use it, it's going to be just little pebbles. It's good to be careful of that in the first place. So I don't even know that ground hamburger is a great way to store meat. But if you put it in a pressure cooker, you know, big piece of beef, or, you know, the hind quarter of a beef or tenderloin or whatever, you freeze dry that, cook that up first. And then I think you could rinse those big pieces underwater. I think that would work. We haven't done that, but in terms of how long it would be good, we haven't pulled any of the grease. We're kind of pessimistic about the stuff we put up that's greasy. We're maybe going to give it 2 or 3 years, but really confident in what we've seen with the stuff we've pulled out of the pressure cooker and then put under freeze dry.
A brief follow-up
chicken
question. Do you use oxygen absorbers, or do you suck the oxygen out with a vacuum sealer?
Both.
use the absorbers.
Yeah. We're
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, stuff that you're only going to use short term, so like a year or two, just sealing them in the clear bags is just fine. It's the stuff that you're planning on, you know, keeping for your food storage and want to use it down the road. That's where I would do the Mylar bags. So, I mean, that's something that you can keep in mind too, is how long do you plan on using it? So we started out using the clear bags and found that, sorry, my cat is struggling. We just found that if we're going to do it, you know, you might as well do it the right way and know that it's going to last, instead of doing it, you know, as we say, a half-assed job, because, you know, then you might pull it out 10 years down the road and you just throw it in the garbage because it's no good. So I always just say, just do it the right way. You're gonna spend the
Also, get
time.
oxygen absorbers from Winco. Holy crap,
yes.
a lot cheaper.
Mhm.
A lot cheaper than anywhere else.
Okay.
I will say that
Okay.
as far as meat goes, chicken has been the best, hands down.
Somebody mentioned about going to Costco and getting, I think it was you, Jim, about getting those rotisserie chickens that are like $4 or $5 a piece. You can actually buy those off the bone. They have packages of that meat, and our fellowship has purchased and freeze dried that. It's very good. Very, very good. McKay, we have done roast beef, and we have, at kind of at your suggestion, I think, we did wash the fat off. We cooked them in the pressure either a pressure cooker or the Instapot is what we use, which gets a lot of the grease and a lot of the fat off. We tried to then, when the meat was really soft, separate all of the fat off, throw that away, and we then washed the shredded beef under hot water. I think that's what you suggested you have done in the past. And we have freeze-dried barbecue beef, which is killer. It's really, really good. And we also have shredded beef gravy, freeze-dried, that we can put on potatoes or over a bowl of rice. And so washing the grease to what extent you can off in hot water does work. How long the life will be, McKay, you probably know that better than any of us.
The longest I've reconstituted beef was 6 months, and it was a hamburger patty that I made without doing any particular rinsing, and it was good after 6 months. The longest I've done anything was avocado, and it was spoiled by 4 years with oxygen absorbers, but without using a vacuum sealer.
Most everything else, you're going to get 20. Oh, I'm sorry, Terry, it's your turn.
Oh, I was just going to explain that I have been using jars. If you can see this one. And
Mixed fruit.
This is a mixed fruit, peaches, pineapple, strawberries and something, but this is a vacuum sealer adapter that okay, that you can put on top of your jar. And then I have a vacuum pump that goes into this little hole in the top, and it pulls a vacuum on it, and then it seals. So you pull a vacuum, well, you can see the lid pulled off here, but I've been sealing my stuff in jars that I have, and I can reuse them. And the lids are reusable many times if you're careful when you take it off.
So you can just reseal it after you take out what you want. Just suck it out.
And the weight of the glass is certainly improved by the freeze-dried food in it, because it's a lot lighter, and I can store it in cartons and store it that way. So that's one thing I've done. And they have two different sizes, a large one for the wide mouth and a small one for the regular mouth. Like did corn, and then I sealed the other jars, and this was the excess that we've had up here to use in the kitchen.
Hey, Dad, didn't you use a hand brake pump or something to that? Which I thought was genius, because if you have no power, this is good to know.
It's called a vacuum line pump that they sell at Harbor Freight, and you pump it. Your arm will get tired, but it is a way that you can pull a vacuum on it and it will seal. I bought the vacuum pump at Harbor Freight for $100 or something like that, and then adapted it so I could use it with this kind of a sealer.
Anybody that wants it.
So if you've got jars left in your home that aren't being used, this is one way you could use them.
That's great. Thanks, Terry. Hey, Steve, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I think Reed handed off hosting back to you.
Oh, okay.
So just so that you know, you're officially the host at the moment. I guess we've still got a little bit of time. We don't want this to run past 8:30, but if there's anybody else that has any comments or questions that they want to ask, I guess this would be the time to do it. So hopefully we won't, oh, I guess I'm the host now, so. So if there's anybody, just raise your hand and we'll try to, yeah, Zion, Loving Gear.
You're muted, Zion.
Yeah, can we get you to unmute? Here we go.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm pretty naive to this process. When you're bringing the food out of dehydration, are you just adding hot water to it? Is there any sort of nuance to the type of product that you're bringing back from what you freeze dried?
Jim and Angela, you guys want to address that, or McKay?
Yeah,
McKay?
so you're exactly right. You're just reconstituting with water, and some things are easier than others. So you just would let it soak in the water. If it was hot, it would probably go faster for sure. If you wanted the food to be hot, I mean, you can do even things like yogurt that wouldn't do hot water. You can do cold water with, but it rehydrates. Some things are awesome because you can just add it to a mix, and the thing that you're cooking adds the hydration into it. So if you were doing like a gravy or something on top of dehydrated chicken, the chicken would rehydrate from what's already in the sauce. So there's things to do like that.
I tell you, Zion, if you've never eaten freeze-dried food, especially homemade freeze-dried food, the flavor is just astounding. I mean, it retains virtually all of its flavor. Really, really good.
Yeah, I just, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, envision myself, I put it back in water, and then it's just, I added too much water, and now it's, soupy potatoes versus, the right consistency. So
Yeah, we will learn a lot. We'll all learn a lot, but I think the key, Linda and I learned on YouTube how to reconstitute cheese. And we never would have guessed, but what you do is take a little bag of cheese, of your freeze-dried cheese, put 2 tablespoons of water in with that little bag, and then let it sit for an hour or two, and it reconstitutes the whole bag. I think the key is to start with less than more.
I just wanted to say that you can find so many great ideas on YouTube on how to do things. Like, we had a whole ton of grapes. They were delicious, but there were different ideas on YouTube. And one of them said you had to poke every grape so they didn't explode and everything. But there was one that said if you blanch them, put them in to the boiling water, and they float. When they start to float, you take them out, put them in cold water, and then once they've cooled down, you put them on the tray and then freeze them. We did that, and every one of them are perfect. They didn't explode, and they're just delicious, totally awesome. So, check with the different ideas on YouTube, and you'll get some really good ideas on what to do. Like, we also did meat with, they put gravy on top of it and freeze dried it. And that was good. We actually reconstituted one to see how it tasted, and it was great.
very cool.
Some things really should be not reconstituted. They should just be eaten freeze-dried, like watermelon, for example. You just eat it dry and it's great. You try to reconstitute it, it's a mess. But freeze-dried watermelon is amazing.
It is.
Kyle.
So is pineapple.
So are
I
the
think, yeah, Kyle wanted to say a word here. Should we let him in for a sec?
I just wondered if you guys have found a good book on freeze drying that those of you that have done it, that can explain it. I'm sure that the freeze drying machines come with some simple book or whatever, but I wondered if there was something that you guys recommend out there that we can get.
I think the very best resource right now is Retired at 40. He's gone through, it's a YouTube channel, and I can sit and watch it for hours. They've gone through so many test foods that it saves me so much time not doing something that they've already tried and done well. I mean, it's better than any book.
Okay, so they don't have a book out or something?
No,
that
there
we
is.
have it?
There's books. I I'm a visual learner, and I can fast forward, and see what he's testing at the very beginning of the video, run to the end, and I can see how it turned out. And he's like, this sucked, or this was really good. And then I'm
Yeah.
okay, well, I won't do that again,
Good. Okay, thank you.
Also on social media, they have a lot of groups. Facebook has groups, Instagram has groups. And I love being on there and getting ideas from them, because they'll, share something that they did that was a total fail and they'll say, don't do this, and then others will pipe in and say, oh, well, you should try it this way. And it's great. Like the temperature of the freeze dryer, you can switch the temperature, and, like certain candies do great at a certain temperature, and meats, vice versa, it's not just automatic, stick it in. You have to kind of find the sweet spot of certain things, and different brands freeze differently too. So it's always good to just, the God of Google, just Google it and it tells you what to do and what not to do.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I had a little thought that Kimberly shared, and she said she had some peaches in a can that she wanted, she was afraid they were going to get old, and so she just took them out of the can and freeze dried them. And that, I thought, wow, that's a good idea, because if you've got something that might go bad soon, and if you can preserve it. So we had some cans of tomato, well, it was spaghetti sauce, some cans of spaghetti sauce that I just didn't want them to go bad. And so we put them on the tray, froze them, put them in the freeze dryer. And then when they came out, I just threw them in a blender and made it into a nice powder, and it was delicious. And now all we have to do is add a little water, and we've got our spaghetti sauce.
Okay, thanks, Melody. Hey, we've got Erica and Andrew have raised a hand. Can we hear from them?
Yeah.
I was just wondering how many of those totes do you need to fill up for a year's supply? Or have you figured out like a ratio for a year's supply of the freeze dried food, versus other foods?
Steve, have you got an answer to that?
We each family in our fellowship now, since we got our machine, has should have three totes full. And we believe that those 3 totes full of food should get a family of 5 through between 4 and 6 months. Now, remember that you think of the freeze-dried stuff as the sugar on top. You want to get your rice. We've learned that rice, if you put it in Mylar bags and seal those Mylar bags, rice will keep for 30 years.
Uncooked.
And that's uncooked rice. That's uncooked rice. And so, but you want to have your bulk stuff, your rice, potatoes, pastas, beans, and then use your freeze-dried stuff as what makes eating pleasurable and flavorful and nutritious. But that's what we think. If we were just living on the freeze-dried stuff, I think the answer to your question is we have between 4 and 6 months for each family, 9 families in our fellowship. And we have been working our machine since the end of July. So that gives you
Okay.
an idea.
So you're saying
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
MB had a hand raised and
I think Erica and Andrew weren't quite done, Alan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's finish that up.
Yeah, so it sounds like are you saying the 3 totes would be 4 to 6 months if you had to use them? I get your idea what you're saying as far as it sounds like taste related to your dry goods. But we actually just bought a couple of those totes. We were actually going to use them for like worm composting bins, but so just kind of, I guess, trying to get the idea of like, I don't know, because we don't know a lot about freeze dry. Are those stuff full or something, or?
Yeah, because I was confused on whether you're saying it was 6 months if you actually just ate on the freeze dried alone, or if it was 6 months if you had it with your other bulk storage, like your bean rice.
I think if you have it with your other bulk storage, we may have about, maybe 8 months supply. Jim and Angela, what are your?
My answer is more than you think. I would, every time you go to Costco, I'd get 2 things: pain medication, like the migraine pain medication with acetaminophen, caffeine, and Tylenol. I would get that because I'm in the medical field and I know that's going to be hard to come by. Get a jar. The other thing I'd get is totes. Just get a few because you're going to fill them up, whether it's the lightweight stuff or others, and they stack really damn well. So that's why I just think get those,
But what about in terms of Angela and Jim? You guys had a whole bunch of totes there. How much supply do you think you have for a family of like 4?
Angela probably a better idea than I do.
Well, it's hard to say because we've just been doing like we do a ton of cheese, we do a ton of chicken. We kind of focus on one thing and say, okay, how much are we going to need for 3 years? So like cheese, we probably have enough right now for 2 years. And that's just cheese, just because that's just like I said, my go-to. I'll just go to Costco and I always buy two totes things. And I know that will take care of me for a couple of weeks, so they can just throw it in real quick. Our meats, we've really been working on our meats. Chicken, mainly chicken, just because it freezes the best. And chicken, I mean, you can use chicken in everything. Mexican, throw it over to some rice, throw it over potatoes. Another thing, potatoes, we've really started working on potatoes. Like one day I spent all day cutting them in cute little squares and then seasoning them, absolutely perfect. I'm like, oh, these are going to be like my Sunday potatoes, so that I have something yummy, but you can do that, but you can just throw them in the Instapot or pressure cooker and then take them straight from there and then just put them right out. And you don't even have to cut them or anything, but there's just so much that you can do. But as far as what we have, we have a lot of storage too.
I would say like a tote per person per month. If you had it filled full of stuff, that's a pretty good bet. So if you're trying to do a family of 4, if you chuck it full of like the staples of like a Mexican mix and some beef or whatever, and you had that full, it's lightweight and you can carry it around. That would be probably rationed, like heavy eating, but normal eating. I think that would be about right.
So,
Jim and Angela, just real quick, during your presentation, you said that you had problems with the Mylar bags and critters getting into your totes.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of critters are you talking about? Are they
mice? Yeah, because I thought we would be just fine.
Were the mice chewing through the totes or what?
No. That's why I said the totes are so important, because I was just buying from Costco just the boxes that had the box and then the Mylar bag inside of it. And we decided to get the totes, or we were just pulling stuff out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a mouse got into this. And, Jim was like, well, there's no way they ate through the Mylar. And I found one and there was just a little hole and they did eat through the Mylar. And so that's when we decided, okay, all this food that we're putting all this money into, we can't just, just store it plain out in the open, because critters will get to it and they will eat through it. And so that's why we went and spent so much money on the totes, and everything that we have is in totes. Anything that's food goes in.
So the mice will get through the Mylars, but they won't
No.
get through the toads.
No.
Right.
I could tell you, doing a river running trip on the Grand Canyon, and also here in Las Vegas, we have something called ringtail cats, and they've got teeth to get into anything. And so you definitely want to keep ringtail cats away from things.
Well, and that's why the Costco totes are a whole different grade of plastic than the same thing that it looks like at Home Depot. It's a different thing. They're thicker and better.
Yeah. So again, they might be $2 more expensive, and you think, oh, well, it's cheaper to go here. No, it's a different plastic, totally different.
Let me come back around, if I could, just quickly to Andrew's question. There is a calculator that you can use to calculate your family's needs on the website standindependent.com. And it's really a sweet little calculator. Terry Fawcett found it for us, but that's included on the website. And you can go there and calculate your family's needs. It's a slick, really useful tool. I suggest you go there to kind of determine, what your real family needs would be with the bulk and the freeze-dried stuff.
Steve, do you know where on the site, like approximately?
I was going to ask you that, Dustin.
I'm looking right now. That's why I'm asking. I'm trying to find it. If you can.
McKay, do you remember where the calculator is on the website? You're muted, McKay.
No.
You're still muted. I think we can hear you now. Can you speak?
No, I don't know right offhand.
I'm looking. If I find it, I'll throw it in the chat. But I was just trying to hunt it down.
Sorry about that, Dustin. We should know, and just one of those details. But it is out there. It's a very good tool, and very useful.
If people will go on the website and just start clicking on everything, there is so much awesome information on there. So yeah, check it out, all of it, and also go to the conference and check out that too. So
I found it. I put the link in the chat if you want to. It's titled "How Much Do I Eat in a Year?" Under getting started.
Take a picture of that website that Dustin just put out there with your cell phone or something, so you have it.
Open the link if you can, bookmark it, whatever you need to do. But
Dustin, where on the website did you find that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was on, I believe, tips, awesome tips. Let's see. I was clicking around and I didn't even pay attention myself. So
well, thank you for putting it out there.
That
would be very helpful.
Yeah,
actually, take a picture of that.
I just want to throw out one thing, and that is for those that have their other stuff, such as the bulk stuff. Make sure you get your spices. A lot of people forget that, and just throwing that out as a reminder.
Getting started was the link. It's just getting started. If you click that took me to how do I get started?
Yeah. Hey, I noticed a question come across the chat. Jim, we'll let you take this one. The question was, what kind of concerns you have to have for expiration on the meds, the Tylenol, the ibuprofen, what
Yeah,
kind of
it's sealed.
expiration?
It's sealed pretty well in its jar because it's got a seal and they have those little oxy absorbers in most of them. But if they don't, I always look around and see if they don't, then I would vacuum seal those as well. I mean, anything you put without the oxygen would be great, or put it in a bag with an oxy absorber. But I just found that the meds is pretty cheap right now at Costco, and you can get them, and you might not be able to get them later. And that's one thing that you're gonna want is a pain reliever.
Do you have any idea what the shelf life of that stuff would be?
I think, well, people say the shelf, like when you get a med, this is a big misunderstanding. I think McKay would probably say the same. You know, like they'll give you a shelf life of this substance is a year and a half. I've used things that have been, 10 years out and still found pain relief or the effect of the drug that's there. So I think the FDA gives a certain shelf life, but I wouldn't put any stock in. I wouldn't hesitate to use a pain med if it was 15 years old and stored properly. But I would say that in a jar, if it's sealed with the little oxy absorbers, I would give it 10 years. But if you put it even better than that, if you seal it and take all the vac out of it, maybe even put an oxy absorber, I think that's good just as long as your food.
Okay,
Might
thanks.
not be as potent, but it'll
It'll
still
work.
work.
Sure.
Yeah.
It will degrade a lot faster with heat than with oxygen.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. All right, we've got Elise has a hand up. Can we turn some time over to Elise?
Hi, I wanted to ask Jim again, the name of that book. He said 40 some. I asked in the chat, but there's so much in there.
It's retired at 40. It's a YouTube channel. It's not a book.
Oh, okay. And then also, what about 5-gallon buckets for grain storage? Are those pretty safe and rodent?
Yeah.
If they're airtight, if they have the seal gasket and they're airtight, yes. These Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber though are among the very best way to store just about any.
Yeah.
As long as it's thick. So don't get the cheap ones. It's got to be at least 5 millimeters thick to do that. So make sure you get, the good stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that wants to put a hand up or a question or a comment?
I'd like to offer something. I've been working on a Slack channel specifically for Utah, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be just Utah. But I think these types of topics of creating a channel in there for food storage and things like that, and just kind of more casually as things come up, that might be a good place to kind of chat with one another in between these Zoom calls. If that would be like, it was intended for our fellowships, but also to kind of reach across and maybe help bring us all closer together. I know if ever you've been to Boise and kind of seen how like they get together and they do things, there was a place for them to kind of go and chat and do things like that. I just really wanted that for our fellowships that are, we never see each other, we never talk to each other, and I just would love to try to see us come closer together, but at the same time maybe just create a channel for this topic, drop links and videos and things like that, and just kind of share more casually these topics. If you're interested, let me know.
And that sounds like it would have a lot of merit. Thank you, Dustin.
Yeah, if the best way to do it maybe is drop, I don't know how, like I'm gonna drop my email, you email me if you want, and then that we'll figure it out from there. That way all of you don't have to Yeah, so here's my email in the chat. If you're interested, feel free, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, we have that on the Remnant Online Fellowship has a Slack group that's rather large. And they have a bunch of tags. Yeah, there's probably there's quite a few on there. I can't 40 plus 50 couples. I don't know.
Okay, we are recording this, by the way, and I think that chat thread is actually going to be included with that recording, I believe. So we'll have that information there. So folks, it is now, I think, 8:37, close to that anyway. And we were hoping to close this down at close to 8:30 as we could. So are there any last important impressions or questions? If not, you know, Brian Bower, you came in late to this thing, so we're probably going to ask you if you'd be willing to offer a closing prayer.
Yeah. Yes, I would.
Would you? All
yeah,
right.
that'd be fine.
And after Brian concludes that prayer, we're probably just going to end this meeting. So.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, so grateful for this day to be able to get together and to see all the efforts among us to be able to put food aside, to be prepared and to look to you for our guidance. We ask a blessing upon each family and each fellowship and each situation, that they will receive the understandings they need for their particular geographical areas and the situations they face. We pray that in all things that we can do this in faith, that we can look to you and trust in you and do if there's a widow and they have a widow's mite, that they can do what they can, and if those that have more can do whatever they can. We thank you for the spirit of not just trying to prepare the food, but also spiritually coming together, being mindful of each other, and changing our lifestyles and changing the way we think in order to look to the future and to look to you. Again, we thank thee also for the upcoming conferences and pray that all these efforts, it's not just the end result, but the journey along the way, that we can gain your mind and your heart within us and let go of the cares of this world and gain your heart, our Savior's heart, for one another. These things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.